if you went in to see a doctor about cancer, give a diagnosis, he would tell you where it's at and what stage the cancer's in and the treatment and prognosis that you would receive. Now, you haven't heard that, nothing. All these politicians are talking about jobs and this and that. Now they just got through passing the TTP bill, which is another NAFTA bill set up for Asia. Well, the jobs are going to be shipped overseas, and what you got left, I'm going to say to the average white person, let me say this, the average black African American has dealt with poverty and been very, very near poverty. But a lot of my white friends, they ain't nowhere near it. They haven't even dealt with it. I used to tell them, you ain't had a bad day in your life. You don't know what bad is. You know, not unless you live in Inglewood or the West Side somewhere and realize how crazy it is just from the street-wise and then financially. But those things are coming to your neighborhood, and the living standards of you are going to greatly diminish as a result of what transpired, unless you come together, the people come together and recognize that they're being screwed. Now, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. People do not come together until they receive pain. You know, people don't ignore stuff in their bodies until, you know, things get so unbearable that they go in for a diagnosis. Same thing for the country. Things will get so damn bad that they're going to recognize that they've been hoodwinked about this whole situation, and then that's when they're going to try to act, and then you got a police state here to squash the situation. With your children will, especially the middle whites that send their children to college, the impact of the symptoms of the economic downfall and the true state of the economy. Graduates are coming out of Northwest and some of your top Ivy League colleges. Hey, we talking about 50 and 60% unemployment. Shh. People I know coming out of Stanford, you know, tuition at Stanford is with room and board, running $125 a year. So there's not many of us hit there. It's a lot of foreign students that represents about 40% of these schools. So that's how they get by with raising prices. But for the average American, you go to school, you take out these huge loans, but where you gonna get the return on $30,000 or $40,000?
Yeah, but for 40 years, over 40 years, the Republicans have been running this Nixon Southern strategy, George Washington Southern strategy, saying it's those Negroes. This is why America's going down, and your money's going to them. They've been hoodwinking working class white, poor whites, and middle class whites for over 40 years. Right. I'm not saying we should I'm not proposing Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders are going to save us. I'm not saying that per se. But the trick, we got to come together. We got to lose this racial stuff. Get rid of this racial stuff.
Well, you know that's all part of the thing of divide and rule.
Right.
Just like down in Ferguson, they kept saying it was a race riot. I said, how the hell, and the bottom was, how the hell can they be a race riot? Wasn't no white people out there getting shot at when they wasn't fighting black and white. In fact, a lot of white people in Ferguson was out there causing the trouble with the police and stuff.
Right.
I said, everything now is being set up such that the people are being divided and they cannot come together. That's one of the reasons Martin Luther King was assassinated, was not so much as long as he stayed on the segregation issue, but when black and white started coming together and start dealing with some of the economic issues and war issues, they said he had to go. And that's basically what people are going to have to come together and say, find out, we've all been screwed, your house is underwater, your jobs are being underpaid, and let me show you something how the laws are so skewed. None of the major corporations paid an exit tax when they left America. What you mean? When they took their jobs overseas, they didn't pay no taxes. You know, they lost the Social Security tax, we lost sales tax. We said, well, listen, if you're going overseas, you got to give us 5 years those taxes. They just left, and they want to enjoy the fruits of their of the labor of overseas. You know, can you imagine that they moved overseas? But let me say this: this is how just recent, last 5 or 10 years, they pay the tax. If you was a billionaire and you decide to move overseas and renounce your citizenship, there's an exit tax that you got to pay. They say, you're not going to leave America and take your money overseas somewhere and leave us high and dry, but the corporations left here and left us high and dry. We got devastation that you have not seen.
But when is the revolution going to come, or when the people wake up and say, we ain't taking this no more?
When they lose their pension and the devaluation of the dollar. When they wind up one morning, the banks are closed for about a week, and they lose 50% of their money, and your pensions and stuff, that's when you gonna get in the street and get in these
And
politics.
people say if your money's under the mattress, it still is going to be devalued.
it's still gonna be devalued.
If you got it under the mattress, be devalued. They just tell you it's 75 cents on the dollar. Boom.
That's it.
65 cents on the dollar. Boom. They just, boom. I'm
Boom.
sorry.
That's it.
But I'm saying I want people to, before things collapse, do we have a shot of trying to preempt some of the big money folks?
I doubt very seriously. It's like a miracle. It's like somebody with stage 4 cancer that's got 2 months to live. There is a heroic effort that there is a fantastic miracle that they call healing, miracles that can be done, but more than likely, the folks have not gotten together to find out how do we get out of this situation. Because what's going to happen is, to get out of this situation, they're going to pay the pipe. They're going to take the big brunt. For instance, right now, I think it's like $10 trillion. It's a huge amount of money that corporations have overseas that they have not brought back into America. Because, America has the highest corporate taxes in the world, which is about 35%. I think, for instance, Apple has about $200 billion overseas. So then they can come back and take 30% of that. 30% of $200 billion is $60 billion.
And guess what? They're not going to want the government to say, okay, bring your money back, but we're going to tax all of it. And they're not going to have that either.
They're not going to have that either.
So they say, if I bring it back, you tax it. I keep over there. I'm better off keeping over there than bringing it back. You just going to tax me.
That's the whole point.
And so is it a no-win situation? Does it have to totally collapse? I mean, Tom Hartman had a book out last year. I don't want to read it because it's probably due to press. The press is called the collapse of 2016 or something like that. He thinks it'll be economic collapse of 2016, but he says it's going to be it's an opportunity when things collapse. Maybe you can do what Roosevelt did in the 30s and the 40s.
Well, you're going to have a restructuring of the whole system, but the people are going to pay a big price.
They paid a big price back then.
That's right.
They paid a huge price.
You get the WPA infrastructure. See, let me say how this thing is going to roll. To fix the infrastructure right now with the wages that you got now would be astronomical. But if you had a collapse of this whole system where wages were almost cut in half, more than half, then you would talk about fixing some bridges. The raw materials is cheap. So we're going back to the 20s where you had cheap labor and you had cheap materials.
You don't believe in socialism, do you?
See, well, I'll tell you this. I'm not a socialist. I'm actually a capitalist. But the laws that we have on the books have been totally undermined. It's nothing.
We have unregulated capitalism.
We have unregulated capitalism.
I mean, unbridled capitalism.
Unbridled.
Capitalism has gone wild. It has to be reined in.
It has to be reined in, and you got to have laws to control it.
Because the Republicans say regulation, regulation, regulation. You got to regulate capitalism.
Listen, the body is regulated. The whole system of the body runs very fine under regulation. So when they tell me that you can have a system where you have no regulations and you have a major financial system like the banking system running amok, and you tell me you don't need any regulations on that, that's stone crazy. They have to be regulated just like the utilities. And if they were regulated like the utilities, we would have never got in this damn mess. And also the money situation that you have with the Federal Reserve. All of this, you would never, ever have been this tight.
Let me post my values on the last few minutes of this interview. I'll let you go finish your day, Dr. Warren. If you want me to come back, people love you. I got to bring you back. They probably mad they ain't had you on in years. But what I'm trying to say, though, is that we need some type of socialism to counterback this wild capitalism. So we have to have, like you say, universal health care, free or relatively affordable college tuition, training, post-secondary education should be like basically free. We have to do something because it's collapsing. We have to say we need a little socialism to resuscitate capitalism.
What happened was, see, when I went to school in the 50s, and 60s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, listen, you had vocation were taught in high school. You had aircraft engineering, wood shop, electrician.
In high school.
In high school.
Yeah.
You had a chef. Now listen, they took all of that stuff out and monetized it. So you got to pay $25, $30, or $40, maybe $20, $30, or $40,000 to go to a chef school or to electronics school. Right. But all that stuff was initially done. The auto mechanic was already done in high school.
For free.
For free.
Right. But the people have to demand this.
That's right.
They got to go to the streets and say, we got to change this education system. Everybody is not going to college. It's
That's
up to
right.
30% now, but it was lower than that years ago. Everybody's not going to go to 4-year universities. It's actually for the elite, a semi-elite. So the bottom, everybody needs some training in high school so they can go get a job.
You need trades.
A well-paid job, well-paying job. Yeah.
Like artificial intelligence. Robots gonna be everywhere.
I know, robots, man, they taking over, man.
You're either going to be the designer of the robots, the programming of the robots, or repairing it. Where
Right.
does that leave the average African American? Well, he's out of the ball game.
But they're going to have some WPA jobs
That's
that
right.
gives people something to do because the robots are doing everything else.
That's the whole point.
They got to give people like a living wage or just give them money to survive. Otherwise, you're going to listen, it could be like Soylent Green. You know, I always talk about Soylent Green, right? I hope I never see America turn into Soylent Green, but it could be like Soylent Green real soon if we don't do something.
Well, the homeless that you have in this country is never shown on TV. They got a cap. These are all white people.
Right.
Intense. They never show this stuff on NBC, ABC, none of this. These folks were all working in America. They were a bunch of dope addicts smoking dope or taking drugs. They were at one time very middle class and just totally wiped out. So until people, the vast majority of them people lose the paycheck and their bank accounts and their pension, they're not get off their ass and do what was required to get what we have back. Because the New World Order is not going to work.
But you're on the internet. People can watch your videos. People can contact you.
Right.
On the internet, you tell them what books to read. Buy Silver.
Right.
And make sure that you because a lot of us gonna lose our jobs. That's what we gotta understand.
That's
we
right.
may lose our home, so we gotta start preparing just in case we lose our job, so we don't lose our home.
That's it.
So don't be buying no cars 72 months and loans and all that foolishness. Don't be getting all kind of consumer debt.
That's it.
You gotta get some cash reserves, some silver reserves, some gold reserves.
That's it.
And some canned goods.
That's some canned goods.
Because you may be out of work for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
That's it.
Maybe
Almost.
a year.
Maybe a year.
That's scary, Dr. Warren.
Yeah.
Is it okay? There's a lot of spiritual people. They have to rely on a higher power to get through this, huh?
Yeah, what Babylon says this way in the 18th chapter of Babylon, it says Babylon is fallen. The financial system that we have oppressed the whole world. You got the IMF, they got predatory, they only deal with nations. That's why most of the third world nations have been stripped poor because of these huge loans.
Well, they doing that now with payday loan and title loans and credit card loans. Those people, they got their own little IMF working them every day. Don't even know it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Man, Dr. Warren, we got to come back and see you, Dr. Warren. Oh, the camera's spinning around. I think the show is over, Dr. Warren. Say goodbye to people. They can call you Dr. Warren, right?
Take care, be blessed.
Dr. Warren, man. We got to come back and see Dr. Warren, man. You the man, Dr. Warren.
Okay, you take care.
All right, peace, man.